A true friend is always going to meet you in the middle, and the people who don't, it's just not meant to be. So if you've been on social media at all recently, you've probably noticed a large uptick of people talking about how hard it is to make friends.
Nicest, coolest people on earth, but I'm absolutely terrible at making friends. I don't know, bro. I just don't be talking to people.
Called a friendship recession, but I do feel like we're having a really hard time connecting with each other.
I swear when we were younger, we could literally walk up to someone and be like, hey, do you want to be my friend? And then your friend.
And I think it's really easy to look at those videos and feel bad for people. And it's really easy to it's really easy to slip into that kind of like victim mentality, victim mindset. And I'm not saying that there aren't external reasons why people aren't making friends. I just think sometimes we're missing the picture. I think sometimes there's not enough self-reflection. So with my video, I wanted to use my experience to maybe talk about reasons why people may not be able to make friends very well. I'm by no means an expert, but I went from like struggling to make any friends to now having a small circle that I really appreciate. And I think once I identified some of the main things that I was doing, it made it easier to make friends. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. As always, let me know if you agree or disagree. I'm sure I'll be missing a few things, and I'm not, like I said, by no means I'm not an expert or anything. I just think these are things that I was doing that made it difficult to make friends, and I think other people might be doing these things as well. So that's enough yapping. I'll go ahead and list some reasons why it's hard for people to make friends. So the first reason that comes to mind is something that I was struggling with for a long time, and just being too nonchalant. I used to think that being dark and mysterious and trying to have people like guess my personality, I used to think that was a way that I could attract people, and it set me up for failure each and every time. I think one reason I fell into being nonchalant is because, it's like as a guy, people kind of shut you down if you're not interested in the typical things. If you're not, talking about sports or whatever it may be, people sometimes don't really care what you have to say at all. And it gets easy to just like have no personality, or just to become nonchalant and act like you don't care about anything. And that's just one of the worst things you can do to yourself, because it kind of sets you up to just be where it's like people have to keep working. Like, people have to work to get to know you. They have to work to know the things that you're interested in. And most people, they're too occupied to keep working, to keep doing the work, right? People are going to get tired of that. If you just make it difficult for people to get to know you, people are going to give up at some point. I'm not saying you have to be the super boisterous, expressive person, but I think just giving people bits and pieces of your personality. I'm not saying you gotta like overshare with everyone, but just make it easier for people to know, the type of person you are, what you're into. And I think if the goal is to make friends, that'll make it easier when you're more upfront and more forthcoming about things. Like I said, you don't have to be super expressive and like all in people's faces, but give people something to work with. I mean, I'm sure we can think of people we've tried to talk to, whether we're trying to make friends, or maybe we have a crush and you talk to them and they're just giving you nothing. Like, you just don't know like what they're interested in. They give very dry responses, and then it's just like, all right, well, I'm kind of tired of that, so let me move on to the next thing. So yeah, don't be that person. Just be yourself. Let people know what you're interested in. And I also wanted to say, there is a difference between being nonchalant and chill. A lot of people think that chill and nonchalant are the same thing, and that's absolutely not the case. I feel like being a chill person, you still care about your people, you still care about things, but you just express it in a different way. Whereas nonchalant is like you quite literally don't care about anything. So yeah, like I said, just don't be that person. Let people know the things you're interested in. Like I said, if the goal is to make friends, whatever setting you're in, if the goal is to make friends, let people know what you're interested in. And, if those aren't your people, they're not your people. But at least people know what you like. And it makes it easier for those people to come to you. To add on to what I said about it pertaining to guys mostly, obviously there are some women who deal with this as well. You probably might have a girl you really want to be friends with, and she's just not very forthcoming about things. But I think this definitely applies to men more because, like I said, I know with me being a guy, if I wasn't talking about sports or women, or if I whatever like masculine things, if I wasn't talking about those things, they're just not interested, and that's okay. But I think a lot of guys, they deal with this and they just resort to, like I said, having no personality or just becoming nonchalant. So the second thing I wanted to talk about is associating with the wrong people. And obviously it's like you're not gonna make friends with the wrong people, but let me explain.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
So with this, so I was in a place in my life at one point where I wanted to make friends so bad that I just wasn't particular about who I was spending time with. I've always considered myself to be a little bit of a social butterfly. It doesn't take that much for me to speak to people. But like I said, I wasn't particular enough about, who I was giving my energy to. And sometimes what would happen is, I would talk to people and, we would have a few things in common. We would have some artists that we liked, or we would have some activities that we liked. But then we get to the fundamentals, the foundation, like your core values, your beliefs, like things that are really important to you. And those were the things we weren't agreeing on, or those were the things that were very different. So for example, I love talking about superheroes. I love superhero media, movies, TV, video games. Like I love all of that. So, you meet people who they get excited about it too. But then maybe they're a person, they like to go out and drink every weekend, or maybe there's somebody they don't really, go to church, and I want to make it clear that you can definitely be friends with people who are different from you, but I think there's going to be a lot of tension when you guys aren't sharing those same core values and beliefs. So, maybe not now, but there might come a time down the road where there might be, like I said, significant tension because you guys can't agree on, core things that are really important to you or that are really important to that person. And, going back to the time in my life where I just wasn't particular about who, I was giving my energy to and spending time with, none of those relationships are present now. Like none of those I don't have any of those current relationships, the people where I just thought, we were good friends, but, the core values and beliefs didn't align. Like it's just, there's just not really anything to go back to. So I would just say be careful about who you're really spending time with and giving your energy to. It's okay to have differences with people, but I just think there are things that are really hard to overlook, and if you keep trying to make things fit where they don't fit, you might end up disappointed. All right, so for my next one, I think some of you guys are looking for yes people. You're just looking for people to agree with you all the time and be on board with everything you say and do, and that is just not a real friend. Having real friends means having people in your life who are going to hold you accountable outside of your family. And I know some people, they'll consider their friends family, but you know what I mean. Like outside of your immediate family, people who have gotten to know you over a significant amount of time are usually, people who really care about you. And if someone doesn't care about you, they're going to show it. And one way of showing it is just having someone who just agrees with everything you say, because none of us have all the answers. None of us know everything. So if there's someone who's just on board with everything you do and say, they more than likely don't really care about you. If anything, they are plotting against you, or they are going to stab you in the back at some point. Like that's just the truth, like full stop. Anyone who's just smiling in your face and encouraging, bad behavior or bad thoughts, like they are preying on your downfall. Whereas, if you have a friend who is going to stop you every now and then and be like, hey, like, you could have done this better, or hey, man, you didn't have to say that, or hey, girl, like, maybe you should have worn this, something like that. Like, just having people who are going to call things out every now and then. And there's a distinction between friends who call you out and being a hater. Obviously you don't want to surround yourself with people who are just hating on you all the time, but you can tell the difference. I'd say someone who is trying to really help you out is going to be like, hey man, I love you, but I really think you could have done this, or this is something you can do to improve your life. Whereas a hater, it's just anything you do, they're going to have something negative to say. They're always trying to put you down. They're making slick comments. They're talking about you behind your back, and then it gets back to you like that. Like, that's a hater versus someone who really cares about you. And if you want a true friend, beware of people who are just agreeing with everything you say or do, because they will more than likely be your downfall. If it's not them directly, it'll be their voice in your head that's encouraging you to meet your demise. So this one isn't something that I really struggle with, but I did want to add this in here because I feel like this is something I encounter with other people a lot. So this one would be kind of quick, but if you're interacting with people and you find yourself only sharing things about yourself, you're saying I all the time, I do this, I do that, like, that is definitely problematic. And I say that because, when people are opening up to you and sharing key details about themselves, people are sometimes waiting for you to, dive into that. And if you're just someone who's talking about yourself all the time, and it's hard to identify that if you're someone who does that. But if you're in conversation and you're constantly just saying I, me, then that's going to make it really difficult to make friends. I just have so many experiences with talking to people, and I tell them something about myself, or I talk about like a general situation, and then right off the bat they're just I, me, this is what I got going on, yeah, this is what I'm doing, I'm dealing with this, yada yada yada, and then the conversation ends, and it hasn't really been a conversation. It's just been me like listening to them talk about what they got going on after I caught myself trying to throw them a bone. And that's just one of the worst things when you're trying to get to know people and all they have to talk about is themselves. I don't know. Just really, if you're really looking for friends, be aware of the way you have conversations. If you catch yourself saying I and me a lot, like catch yourself and try to adjust, try to change that behavior, because you are not going to make long-lasting friends if you can only talk about yourself all the time. All right, so this last one is I have a lot written down, and I got to pull my notebook out, make sure I don't start rambling and going too off topic, but you're not setting healthy boundaries. You're not setting healthy boundaries, and what I mean by this is, imagine that you go to a restaurant, you're sitting down, and obviously you're going to have a waiter or waitress, whatever. And it's like you get your food, you get your drinks, and as soon as you take a bite or a sip of your drink, the waiter's like running to your table, filling up your cup, and like asking you how the food is, like, how's your experience, like, is the food good? Like, after each and every bite and after each and every sip, they're like right at the table at all times. And I think on paper that sounds nice, but I think in practice that would make it really easy for you to get complacent with how you treat that person. And I guess to, apply this to my life, there was a lot of points in time where I thought if I was just super attentive, if I was just always rushing to someone's aid, that would make us friends. and I, inevitably learned the hard way. That's one of the worst things you can do to yourself, where you just are constantly pouring into people. Your whole world revolves around this person or this group, and you're just not getting the same in return, because you've built the system in which they've become fully dependent on you being attentive and filling a role. Now, it is our human nature to be selfish. So when someone comes along and you start doing everything for them, they naturally get complacent. If you're always texting first, if you're always initiating and you're always planning, you're setting yourself up to kind of be taken advantage of. I just think it's really important in early stages of friendships to set those boundaries. Maybe plan a few things, but let your friends know, like, hey, it would be nice if you guys could get something together, or if we could plan something together, because when you just start doing it, it's going to be easier for them to not value you as much. And I know that sounds so bad, but that's just the truth. To truly care or appreciate something, you have to have moments where you go without that thing. So like I said, if you find yourself just always texting first or initiating things, maybe leave it for a little bit and have those conversations. Don't do the thing where it's like, oh, this person hasn't texted me in a while, so I'm just not going to text them. Like, don't do that. Have those conversations with people. If they're your real friends, they're going to receive what you have to say, and they're going to adjust their behavior as they should. And if they're not really your friends, then let it go and let them go. It's not meant to be. It's not going to work. If someone's not willing to listen to you and adjust their behavior, or even have a conversation with you, it's just not worth it. Just set those healthy boundaries as you navigate friendships, because nobody should be your obsession. There isn't a single person in this world that you should just be obsessed over. Like, you gotta be so attentive. You always gotta be, filling their cup and doing things for them. Because of course, like, how can you give all that energy and then expect that same energy from other people? I guess, like, chill out a little bit, Of course, having friends means sacrificing and doing things for people, but it should be to a certain extent. You should never be exhausted, or you shouldn't have that feeling of, well, I did this and this person isn't doing this exact same thing for me. No, like, don't do that. Don't be the person who's always just rushing to do things. Meet, and also, try to meet people in the middle. Sometimes people aren't ready to receive all of that. Like, I know I have some friends right now where it's like they're not really planners like that. They get really busy, and it's hard for them to be on the phone like that. So I had those conversations with them, and I was able to meet them in the middle. A true friend is always going to meet you in the middle, and the people who don't, it's just not meant to be. But I hope all of this makes sense. Just don't be the person who's obsessed with fulfilling, that role for people. Like, let things happen naturally, and if it's meant to be, it'll work out. So yeah, that is all I have to say. I just wanted to list a few reasons why I think a lot of people are struggling to make friends. Obviously, I'll be missing some things, and I'm sure y'all will let me know. So also let me know if you agree or disagree with anything. I always love input and commentary. I'll try to respond to anything I get. And I also wanted to apologize for the long hiatus. Life happens. A lot of different things have been happening, like trips and work and, figuring out things with school. But, what can you do, But thank you guys for your patience. And, that's all I have on my mind. I'll see you guys another time.